Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Anne and today I'm going to be bringing you my very belated June wrap up. July has not been a month for me. I know I keep saying that every month I feel like it's going to be a better month and it doesn't turn out to be. So yes, it is the 21st of July and I'm filming my June wrap up, but it's fine. We're fine. We're getting there. But I had a very successful reading month in June. I won't say the same for July, but that's okay. That'll be in July's wrap up. That's going to be coming in pretty much a week. But so let's talk about my monthly statistics and then we'll get into my reviews. So I read 17 books. I read 4 physical, 8 ebooks and 5 audiobooks. For the genres that I read 5 fantasy romance, 3 fantasy, 3 historical fantasy, 3 mystery, 1 sci-fi, 1 dystopian and 1 dark romance. Quite a different genre range there, which is quite exciting, but I definitely had a fun time reading some more fantasy romance and I'm definitely going to be continuing that as we go through the next couple of months. For my age ranges, there's no real surprise here. 15 adult, 2 young adult and 0 middle grade. As you can see, I'm kind of leaning back towards the adult reads, although I still enjoy young adult and middle grade. I've been really trying to focus on reading the books on my shelves and I don't own a lot of young adult and middle grade, so that's where that kind of comes from. And the ratings that I had 5 5 stars, 8 4 stars, 3 3 stars, 1 2 star and 0 1 stars, which is great. And my books acquired, I had 8 owned, 0 from the library, 6 ARCs, 2 from Kindle Unlimited, 0 from Everand and 1 from Libby, which is not too bad. So let's just get into all the books that I read in June. The first book that I read was Waysider by KG Sutton. I gave this 5 stars. I had an absolutely great time with this book. I've talked about it in a couple of videos now, and this is a story about Cass. She is a 20-year-old who has gone home for the holidays, I'm pretty sure, and she gets into this terrible accident where she actually ends up dead for 4 minutes, and when she comes back to life she can now see these ghosts, and she then learns that she is now a waysider or a voyeur, and she is then sent to a school where she has to learn about her powers. It is so creepy and gothic. The kind of line that sold me was Ghostbusters meets Stranger Things with a little bit of Silence of the Lambs, and that is exactly what this book is. It is so dark, so creepy. There is certain scenes that actually really freak me out, but I had a great time with it and I really love the series. It's a 5-star read for me and I'm definitely waiting for book 2. It's the only thing about reading ARCs. You read the book so early and then you can't have the next book immediately. The one that I read was Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. I listened to this on audio and I have given this 3 stars, I'm pretty sure. It was 3 stars? No, I gave it 2 stars. I did not really enjoy this book, unfortunately. I've just not been having a good time with Gillian Flynn, but this is a story about our main character Libby. She has gone through a very traumatic past, and her testimony actually put her brother into prison for the murder of her family, and then we're following her as she is trying to figure out 20 years or so in the future if her brother actually did it. I hated this main character. She is so frustrating and annoying and whiny for no goddamn reason. Like, she is like 30 years old in this, okay, and she's been to therapy, she's dealt with her stuff, but in a way she doesn't want to work because she doesn't believe in herself having to work. Like, she just can't do it. Like, she has so much trauma, she can't do it. And then like she's also like, there's this young girl who's gone missing, has been kidnapped and presumed dead, and she's like, well, why is everyone not paying attention to me? Like, how dare they like look at her and try and help her when no one helped me? That type of thing. I did not like it. I did like the kind of dual timeline where we go back in the past and kind of see what her brother was doing at that time and kind of understanding what sort of family life she had, and that was quite interesting. But then there's another scene in here which I did not like and I did not feel comfortable reading. It made me feel very gross, and if you don't want spoilers, I'm going to talk about spoilers now for like 5 seconds. But basically her brother volunteers at this after school art class with a bunch of like middle graders, like 9-10-year-olds I think, and he becomes obsessed with this little girl, and this little girl also becomes obsessed with him, and they start hanging out, and then like the little girl kisses him and he gets a hard on, and then he runs to the bathroom and like explodes, and I just did not see the point in that. Like there was no reasoning for it. Like I don't see why that had to be added within the plot for it to, like, it made no sense to the end of the story, you know what I mean? And I just didn't like it. So yeah, 2 stars for me. Wasn't a great time. The next one that I read was The Syrian Sisterhood by Athena and Bliss. I read this as an ARC and I finally got my physical copy, which is stunning, but this is a 5-star read for me. This was a roller coaster of emotions. This is book 2 in the Son of Echidna series, where we're following Lucy, who is decided that she's going out on her own and she's going to get her job and she's going to sort her life out, and she gets hired as a nanny to take care of these children and animals, and she turns up and it's a house full of adults who are monsters and chaos ensues. I love this one. This one explores more Slavic mythology compared to book 1, which is more Greek mythology, but I had a great time with this. This is Lai. He's one of my favorite characters in this series, but it's very action-packed. We meet some new characters that we've heard about in book 1. There is a lot that goes on in this. The fan family is great. There's a lot of drama within here. There's a lot of hard conversations that are had. And yeah, it was just a really, really fun time. And if you haven't read this series, please, please do pick it up because it is amazing and one of my favorites of all time. I love Athena, I love Marley, her partner, and I just love the series. I am very excited for book 3 and they need more love. She is an NZ author. I'll link her website down below because you really do need to check it out. It's so good. The next one that I read was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, and I gave this a 3-star read. This is another one that I read on audio and I enjoyed it quite a little bit. It was a 3-star read for me. I found it to be a little bit mediocre. I was a bit disappointed with this one because I've heard so many great things about this series and how this book, and it's some of like the best of all time, and maybe because I listened to it through audio I didn't get the emotion and the love for it like everyone else does. But yeah, I found it to be interesting. We're following many different characters in a world where the world kind of collapses. There is this disease, yeah, a deadly virus comes along and the world kind of ends as we know it, and we follow it. So we're kind of seeing how people have dealt with that in that time, and like at the start of this virus hitting America. And then we also are following later in the future where people are just dealing with life and trying to survive. I found it to be interesting. I did like some of the main characters in here, but I didn't find it to be, I didn't love it as much as I thought I was going to, which is sad. I did like the cult sort of vibe that was in here, the cult kind of thing, and I liked seeing the connections that were made between some of the characters that we're following in our future timeline and the past timeline, which I found was quite interesting. But other than that, it's not something that I think I'm going to reread, unfortunately. And I think yeah, it's just, it is what it is. The next one that I read was A Court in Mist and Fury by Sarah J Maas. I don't think I need to talk about this too much. This is a reread for me. 5 stars. Absolutely loved it. I'm obsessed with this series. I also read A Court of Wings and Ruin in this month, so I read these 2 as a reread. Both are 5 stars. I absolutely love this series. I'm obsessed with Sarah J Maas. I love Feyre. I love all of these characters within here. I love the family. I love the mental health rep. There is so much that happens within these series, like these books, and I just love them so much. I don't really want to talk too much about these 2 specifically because it's spoilers for book 1, but it's just a comfort series for me. It makes me very happy and I'm very excited to continue with the series. And yeah, I love Feyre. I love all the characters in here. I love the world. I love just everything about them. And if you haven't read this series, I really do suggest picking them up because I've tabbed the heck out of both of these. It was so fun, and I am obsessed with the series. Then I read An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. This has been sitting on my shelf for quite a while, and from what I remember, this is about Isabel. She is one of the best artists in this town, and she is then hired by the prince to paint him. And she accidentally makes a mistake and she paints human emotion into his eyes, which then means he has to come and take her back to the Feylands as a prisoner, because how dare he, how dare she. And it took me a while to get into this one, if I'm being honest. I found it to be quite slow going, but once we started getting into it and Rook and our main character Isabel start going through the Feylands, it started to get interesting. I gave this 4 stars and I had a good time. It's a very cozy fantasy. There is some high stakes within here, but it is a very short read and I read it in pretty much 2 to 3 hours. It was pretty good. And yeah, I don't really have much to say about it, to be fair, because it's been such a long time since I've read it, and that's what happens when you wait almost a month to review your books, but it is what it is. And yeah, it was a good time. I really enjoyed it. I liked the relationship that formed in here and it was very interesting. The next one that I read was Cherry Nova by Kelly Marie Pollock. This is another reread from me, and this is part of a bigger series that I did read. So I read Deathbringer. So I read 3 books within this series. So I read Cherry Nova, Deathbringer, and then Cranefly. This is the novella in this series. This is another reread for me to continue with the series and finish off with the final installment, Peacekeeper, but I'm gonna just talk about it in general. So this is a story about Cherry, and she wakes up having no memory with a dead body in the hotel room with her. This is London in the Victorian era, and it turns out that Cherry has been turned into a vampire and she has no memory of it. So she is trying to figure out what happened to her, why, and fix some things that are happening within this series. I really enjoy this series. It's been a long time since I've read it, because it took the author quite a while to release the last book, but I've pretty much been an ARC reader for every one of these books, and the author did send this to me quite a few years ago, and it is signed by the author, which is amazing. I do need to buy book 1, book 2 and book 3 and the rest of the books to have on my shelves, because it is a really good series. I had a great time with it. It was so good being back with Cherry. I really love all of the characters within here. We've got Cherry, we've got Bucky, we've got Noah, Max. It's just so good, and it was just so nice to be back in this world. Victorian era London. It's like gritty and atmospheric and very gothic. There's vampires, werewolves, witches, and it's just a really good time. There's a lot of trauma within here. There is a lot of serious things that are happening, but it is very beautiful, very family, and yeah, it's just a really good time. Then I also read Voice in the Tower by C.H. Lynn. This is an ARC read for me, and this is another 4-star read for me. So this is a Rapunzel retelling. The first one was The Song of the Deep, and I reviewed that back in May or April, I can't remember which one, but it was such a good story. This is a short Rapunzel retelling. It's very short. It only took me like 2 hours to read. I had a great time with it. So we're following Princess Riva, and she is captured by a magician, and her love has to go and save her. Riva is such a strong, stubborn character, and she's not letting anyone take fate out of her own hands. And we see characters from the previous book, and it's just such a fun time. I really love how this author takes these stories and makes them her own, and it's just so good. I have a really great time with them, and I'm very excited to read the 3rd one, if she does come out with a 3rd one. I haven't heard anything about it, but definitely if you're looking for some short novellas and that feature fairy tale retellings, then maybe this one is for you. It is such a good time. Then I read The Lost Man by Jane Harper. I think I mentioned in my previous wrap up that I thought I read this one, but I didn't. I read the one that I didn't own, The Dry. So this is actually the series. No, this isn't the series. This is the like standalone, where we're following 2 brothers who are called out into the outback, and they have found their brother dead, and they're trying to figure out what has happened to him, if it was an accident, if it wasn't, etc, etc. And I had a really good time with this. This follows this family who are pretty much on their own in the outback. They're on this farm and they're trying to survive, and they're trying to figure out what happened to their brother, because in this sort of environment people do end up trying to this hurting themselves to get out of a life, because it can be quite tough. So this is out in the outback. It is hot, it is sweltering, like you feel the heat in this. There's so much atmosphere within this story, and I had a great time with it. I really liked our main character. What was his name? Nathan. And we're following Nathan, and he's kind of telling the story, and we also get flashbacks of him in the past and what he has done and why people don't like him within this territory. And it's just so atmospheric, because you can feel the heat, you can feel how like muggy and hot this place is, and we're following this family as they grieve, and secrets are being unveiled, and just there's so much that happens within here. It is more of a mystery, and we're kind of slowly untangling all of these things, and there's a lot of things such as like forgiveness and grief and just so much. I'm trying to figure out the words to say without spoiling anything, but yeah, it's really good. Like forgiveness, grief, secrets, drama, trauma, abuse. There's so much within here that is really, really important, and I had a really good time with this. This is a 4-star read for me. I had a great time with it, and I really, really enjoyed it. The next one that I read was The Need by Helen Phillips. This is a 3-star read for me. I got this on Libby. It was a very short audiobook. I think it was only 6-hour audiobook, so it only took me like 3 hours to read. But this is a story about a woman who has found out while she's in her home with her 2 children, there's someone in her house. That's all I knew about it, so I thought this is like going to be this really cool thriller where we're following this mother who's trying to survive with this intruder in her house. It turned out to be so weird. Like, I had no idea. There was this weird sci-fi twist that I wasn't expecting, and I was just so confused through the whole reading experience, because I was like, I have no idea what's happening right now. I don't understand what's happening. There's this weird sci-fi twist, and I don't know if I like it. I would have definitely preferred it if it was more of a thriller than it was this weird sci-fi. I might have been too dumb to actually understand what was happening within the story. The ending is very open-ended, like you have no idea how it's ended, and you're kind of making it up at the end, going, okay, I think this is what happened, so I'm going to go with that. But it was weird. I don't know, if you like weird sci-fi things, maybe you'll enjoy it, but I don't know. Wasn't for me, unfortunately. I did give it a 3-star because the atmosphere was great. I really enjoyed the atmosphere and kind of the watching our main character kind of spiral into this sort of madness, and you're not sure what's happening is actually happening or if she's just losing her mind. And yeah, it was okay. Next one that I read was The Serpent King's Prisoner by Olivia Blair. So this is a author duo, and this is a story about a how do I explain this? This is about a girl who has a secret and this guy who is mafia, and it's kind of their dark romance story. She catches him doing something that she shouldn't have seen, and he has to take her as prisoner. Now in this one there is a lot of triggers, so please be aware. There's dubious consent, SA, and just there's a lot that goes into this. There's torture, there's gore, there's murder, but definitely those triggers for dubious consent and definitely SA, just please be aware going in. This is definitely dark, but I did really enjoy this one. This is a 5-star read for me. I had a really good time with it, but please be aware of your own mental health. I really liked our main character. She is fierce, sassy, she is so strong for dealing with what she's dealing with, and I also did really like our male main character. Like, he's been brought up in this world, so violence, blood, this is his life, but he also has this like softer side to him, which I also enjoyed. And the ending, so good. It ends on this cliffhanger and I need book 2 like immediately, but I don't think it's out yet and I'm very sad. But it was such a good time. I had a really good time with it, and I'm definitely going to be reading more from this series and definitely more from these authors. The next one that I read was The Third Woman by Jonathan Friedland. This was a 3-star read for me. This is another audiobook that I listened to, and this is about a woman whose sister has been murdered, and this is about a really famous popular journalist whose sister has been murdered, and her main goal in life is to tell the truth. In this world, it's kind of dystopian because the Chinese have kind of taken over part of America, and the Chinese are in control of a lot of things. So there's a lot of political things within this series as well, in this book as well, and we're following our main character as she's investigating her sister's death because her sister died of a heroin overdose, but like she has never taken drugs in her life, so she's like, absolutely not, this is not what happened, it wasn't an overdose, it wasn't a suicide attempt, someone killed her. So she starts to research this and trying to figure out what happened to her sister. Again, I wasn't a biggest fan of this one. It was an audiobook, so I was just listening to it and getting through it, but yeah, it wasn't my favorite, unfortunately. I found our main character, she's supposed to be this world-class best journalist ever, she's won awards, but when she's investigating, she starts jumping steps. She starts creating these stories, publishing these stories, and then realizing, oh no, that's wrong, I need to backtrack, and like going against everything that she tells you as a journalist. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, this is how the journalists do it, this is how I normally do it, but I'm not doing it this time. And I guess you could say that it's the grief of losing her sister, but also at the same time, if you know, like, you should be just falling back on those instincts, and if you're a world-class journalist, you should be just doing those things. And yeah, I just found it to be strange. I did find it to be quite intriguing, that's why I kept reading, but again, it's not something that I'm going to remember. Everything's a little bit foggy with this one as well, and yeah, it was alright. 3-star read for me. I've got 2 more books to talk about and then we're done. So I've got Bound and Bewitched by Ren Cartwright. This is a short, witchy, cozy fantasy novella, and we're following our main character who has found out that her father is in a bit of trouble and is possibly going to be losing his house, and she decides that she is not going to let him to do that, so she has to get the help of a goddess to find this mystical plant that hasn't been seen in a long time to stop the debtor from collecting the debt. And this is a really cute novella where we're following a very beautiful sapphic romance, and I just had a really good time with it. It's so cute. There's not really high stakes. Like, yes, her father may lose a house, but you know, no one's going to die, and I just found this to be really sweet. I had a great time with it. It was so heartwarming watching this sapphic relationship grow. We've got this quite a bit older main character as well, and she owns her own apothecary. She's like this witch in town, and no one really likes her within the town because she's the only witch, and everyone kind of fears magic, but when this goddess comes along, everyone starts to welcome her in. And the goddess really tries to show people that, look, she's not this bad person. Yes, she's a witch, but she's this beautiful person and you should love her just as much as I love her. And it's beautiful. I had a great time. It's very funny as well. There's a lot of banter within here, and I just had a really good time. And the last one is An Ember in the Dark by L.J. Burkhart, and this is a 4-star read for me. I had a really good time with this. This is about a young woman who has lost her mother, and she accidentally falls through this portal into this magical world and finds out a lot of new things about herself, and she is then brought to the king on this forced proximity journey with this vampire guard. And it's a really good time. I had a really fun time with it. I did find while our main character was in our world, the more contemporary setting, I found the writing to be a little bit blocky, a little bit jumpy from time to time, but once we fell into this fantastical magical world, everything started to flow a little bit better. So I definitely had a good time with this. The ending is really good too. It ended on a cliffhanger, and I'm very excited to pick up book 2. And yeah, I just had a really good time with it. the tension between our two main characters. He has taken this oath of celibacy while he is working this job that he's working, but he really wants her, and you can see how much he wants her, and their tension is top tier. It's so good and I'm very excited to read more from this author. So yeah, that's all the books that I've read in June. It was a lot to talk about, but here we are, it is done. I've finally filmed this wrap up, because thank God. Give this video if you liked it, comment down below if you have read any of these books and what you thought of these books, and subscribe if you want to see more content from me. Bye!